Good afternoon and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. I am Rosemary, and you are watching 78 cards in 78 weeks, in which I walk through my study and exploration of each individual card as I draw them from my very first tarot deck that I ever worked with, and attempt to create imagery for a deck at some point in the future. I am simply mocking up the cards the way that I kind of want them to look until I can hire an illustrator to do them the way that I really desire. And it's given me an opportunity to do a lot of writing for the guidebook as well. This week, we are going to be talking about the King of Pentacles, which interestingly enough follows our discussion of the Queen of Pentacles last week. Welcome, sunflowers. So, as always, I would like to share a little bit about what's been going on with me lately and what has come into my life, so to speak. My puppy is whining this morning because he's decided that he's tired of sitting up here after I spent an hour up here. And we'll talk about that in a minute. One of the things that I got this week was this lighter, which look at first my thought was, oh, it's almost like a wand, but it's a match, right? And the reason I got it is because ever since I moved my office, I have been struggling to find my lighters. I don't know where they are. I know I should have like 4 in my house or 5, but I can't put my hands on any of them, even in the places where they're supposed to be. So I got this yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, Saturday. Well, it's been a long weekend. And so yeah, I finally can burn some incense in my new space. Yeah. I do love this. I hope it lasts for a while, and that I'll be able to find another one when I'm ready. Yeah, I also this week bought some sunflowers, which I do to cheer myself up periodically. I've been kind of in a weird place the last 6 weeks where I have been doing just the bare minimum, and that bare minimum has been my 78 cards in 78 weeks. I've let most things go, and I'm happy to say that I'm starting to catch up. I have done all of my reading for my 3 classes that I'm taking right now with groups online. And I also have started catching up on some other things as well. So, welcome, Jane the Seeker. So glad you're here. Yes, you did see a kitty. She's appeared in a couple of videos over time. You'll also see my 2 dogs back there. If I remove the banner, let's see. There we go. There's one of them, at least the backside of him. That's Poggy. And there is a somewhere back here. Also a pug. Yeah, so you can barely see the bit of him right there beside that pillow. And so they will probably be making an appearance now that I have a broader view of my whole room. But ideally, they'll all be napping. When I was on the couch, the cat sometimes would get behind me and like walk on me and get in my way and knock the things down that I was trying to work with. Made for some fun times. So that's what's been going on with me, and those are the pets. They have been introduced. And so today we are talking about the King of Pentacles, which follows the Queen of Pentacles, which was a coincidence because I'm drawing the cards at random to work on them. And so let's take a look, as we often do, at some of the cards from my collection that I either like or have a problem with, and get an idea of what people usually put into their cards. So this is the Robin Hood, which is a very kind of traditional imagery, a man sitting on a throne, crowned. Hers is a little more pagan, so you're going to see him out in the countryside. In the Smith Waite, we get a little bit of that because he's covered with the grapevines and whatnot, but he's still very much on an estate kind of thing. Whereas in this one, it's very much more earth based and connected with the earth. And I'm going to read something from the pictorial key in a moment to talk a little bit about that. There are two very differing types of images that we get. One being that very earthy image of our King of Pentacles, and the other being a wealth aspect. And so here is the slow tarot. The snake makes a lot in the slow tarot in the Pentacles. And I suppose that is kind of an earthy symbol. And it's one I can kind of relate to living in the country and almost stepping on a snake more than once as I walk through the grass. And so I do love this card. And as you'll remember from my anniversary event, that this is one of the decks that I use the most as we've gone through this process. Again, here's that idea of wealth seen in the Santa Muerte. To me, this has a little bit of a Four of Pentacles feel, and that's a thought that I'm going to come back to in a little bit when we talk about the meaning of the King of Pentacles, is that four. Welcome, Fran Marley. Glad to have you here as well. I love the Curious Travels. It's a more gentle type of king, right? Very earthy. And I love that her images are faceless, basically, in her courts. It's very cute. This is one of the more unusual King of Pentacles in my collection, in that it has a very relaxed feeling that I don't typically get from most King of Pentacles, perhaps because of the imagery that is used or the focus on wealth. But, he is very comfortable, right? And that's really the idea behind the King of Pentacles, is that he is comfortable. He has what he needs. And he provides for those around him. And yet he's connected to the earth despite his wealth. I love the fact that he has a dog. So this is really a beautiful image. The Bonestone and Earth Flash. This is kind of a weird one for me when I see it, because it's supposed to be the Green Man, that idea of the man of earth and the connection with all things earthly. But the courts in this deck don't really go together. So like this king, I just don't see married to the queen we looked at last week, because the queen was a crone. And this dude actually looks very young and handsome, and not an old guy at all. I don't think I would see him with that crone, right? But this is a different way to go with that imagery, is looking at the idea of the Green Man as a concept, as we talk about, the father of earth, so to speak. Here is the Tarot of the Twirling Hands, which is making lots of appearances since I purchased it. And because I do love the imagery, I also love the names that she gives these cards. The Ambitious Father of Material Success. Again, focusing here on the financial, you'll see he is riding a bull or an ox, that nod to the idea that this card is linked to Taurus, particularly in the way that I view astrology and the courts. That would be accurate. And you also see that bull on the Smith Waite imagery on the throne. And so I do love this image, and I love her titles. I kind of want to email her and say, where did you get your titles? Did you come up with them, or are they from a system that I'm not familiar with? Welcome, Pamela Batchelor. Lots of people I don't recognize today, but obviously have been here before. Here's another one that embraced that Taurus energy. Actually, the bull is the King of Pentacles. This is the Mystical Medleys. I do love this deck. It's a lot of fun, but it still sticks with all of the imagery that is so important to me in our cards. Okay, and my dogs have disappeared. I'm seeing what they're up to. One moment. Okay. Again, here is an animal that some might associate with wealth. Here is the pig as a piggy bank. The queen was also like this in the mystical garbage tarot. It's actually a living pig, but it has a little plug like it's a piggy bank. I connecting it to that idea of financial wealth, and also pigs are pretty earthy, right? They like to wallow in the mud and the dirt, and so yeah, absolutely something I think will work. Hello, Susan. Welcome. The last one I have here from my collection to share is one that is completely different. And while the description of the card, as far as its meaning, is very similar to other decks, the choices in the Numinous Tarot of using tomes, i.e., books, for the Pentacles or Earth suit can sometimes throw me because I would associate books with air, right? With knowledge, with learning, and understanding. Um, but as a earthly person, you want to you put that knowledge to use, right? And that's really what he is about, is putting that knowledge to use to gain the resources he needs. It is quite unusual. All right. So those are some of the images that I pulled from my deck. And I want to take a moment and just read from the pictorial key because I thought this was really odd. Uh, some of the cards in the tarot, as people have recreated them, and are very, even though most of the deck looks like the Smith Waite imagery, embrace very different ideas from what Waite had to say about the cards. And this is one of those in particular. He starts out describing the king in what I might consider somewhat of a negative connotation, a shadow side. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people tend to do with their kings or patriarchs, as it were, in the tarot, because they have this negative view of the patriarchy. They tend to like give these kings kind of negative connotations, like we do with the emperor, um, rather than recognizing the best attributes of them. They look at the shadow more so when I hear them talk about them. He says the figure calls for no special description. The face is rather dark, suggesting also courage, but somewhat lethargic in tendency. And see, to me, that would be a shadow side of this dude, right? Lethargy. Um, the bull's head should be noted as a recurrent symbol on the throne. The sign of this suit is represented throughout as engraved or blazoned with the pentagram, typifying the correspondence of the four elements in human nature, and that by which they may be governed. In many old tarot packs, this suit stood for current coin money deniers, as it was, which is what we call this in the Marseille. But he says, I have not invented the substitution of pentacles. Don't know where he got it from, right? And I have no special cause to sustain in respect of the alternative. So he basically says, yeah, I didn't invent this, and I have no reason to hold on to the coins, like that they used in the past. But the consensus of divinatory meanings is on the side of some change. So he's saying this is about change. It's the cards do not happen to deal with, especially with questions of money. So it's kind of the opposite of how we interpret this card, right? We usually think of this as about wealth and financial gain, because this is a person that we see of abundance and of financial stability. But he says that it's not about money. He says it's in fact about valor, realizing intelligence, business, and normal intellectual aptitude. Sometimes mathematical gifts and attainment of that kind. And so basically success at any of those paths. In reverse, he does talk about some of the things which everyone else will talk about, and we'll get to that shadow side in a minute. And so it's interesting that we often associate this with health and wealth when, Waite himself says, oh, no, it's not about health and wealth. It's not about wealth at all. It's really about um, being successful at your endeavors. You're applying your intellect to succeed in whatever arena it might be. And I guess you could see that to a certain extent because most of the time, comfort and wealth does come from success in your earthly endeavors, and being able to utilize the knowledge and information that you have. So. I think my incense had burned out, Jane, before we started, but I had been burning it earlier in the day. So, as I mentioned before, I associate this with Taurus as the fixed sign for Earth, that kind of steadfastness, that stability, kind of grounded energy, as well as that ability to push through where necessary. And the Golden Dawn called this the Lord of the wide and fertile land. So again, that connection to earth, and the idea of health and wealth, material success and abundance. Uh, this is a person who is a good provider. And this can represent, as Waite hinted at, and seen in a book, which now I don't remember which one I read it in, and I didn't write it down, about him being surrounded by flowers, and it may have been referring to a specific deck, but the flowers representing the abundance and growth, that is apparent here in this particular card. And I really liked that. And so that's why when I did my card, I did make sure to include some flowers. This can also be a person who is well established, as Waite hinted at, and enterprising, regardless of what that endeavor might be, financial or otherwise. And some of the symbols that are in the card, and here's our coloring, which everybody has come to expect. I tried to simplify by reducing the number of colors, but it's still a really complicated image that just is overwhelming to me, in many respects. You do see the bulls there representing Taurus. You see the grapevines representing the abundance. His staff is his authority, and his crown there. And in the background, his castle representing basically his stability, where he has placed himself, and that type of thing. So the shadow side of this card is, whether it's you're reading Waite or anyone else, kind of leans the same way. Not so much about wealth, but about basically failing to succeed, about being greedy, about being a hedonist, and or completely being lethargic, which is a description that Waite gave of the card in general. This idea that rather than being grounded and successful, you're just basically just doing nothing. You're the couch potato, right? This gives to mind the idea of the deadbeat dad, the dad who doesn't take care of his family. We've talked about this person as a provider and sustainer of their community, their family, as it were. Now, I wanted to talk about the Four of Pentacles here because many people associate this king with Midas, and I might see that in a reverse way. Midas became greedy, and wanted all the gold, and began um, just turning everything into gold, to the point that he lost his daughter as well. Many of you will be familiar with that story. But when I see the Four of Coins, that is the person that comes up to me in my mind is Midas and that greed. And so there is a way in which many people connect this card with the Four of Pentacles in the shadow respect about being about greed, that I find a little bit interesting. Let's look at some of the courts that I have created, because as I was working with this card, I actually began relating it because I did the Queen last week to that Queen and figuring out how those connected. I wanted to look for a moment at how okay. So these were my wands. These were the first, really the second two family members that I created. And I've never really been thrilled with the Queen of Wands, the artist. But everybody seems to like the front man. I'm very happy with the front man. So now I'm thinking I need to make her line up more with his energy and his feel. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that, if I'm going to give them both the same setting, i.e. the fiery wall, or how I might connect them. But I definitely like the silhouette I chose for her there. The other quartz that I have a set of right now, whoops, come on, there we go, are the cups or the water suit right now, and that is the page and the knight. And these were some of the early quartz that I did, and I connected the page with the other cards I had created in the cups. This is the background of this is actually what was used in all of those that appeared indoors. And then I did this one. And in the respect of them being imaginative, I feel like they connect. But that's about the only way they really connect. I probably need to make these wings not part of the silhouette. But I'm not sure how else I might connect them. So let's look at the pentacles. And oops, let's see. Oh, nope, wrong one. There we go. I had previously created these two images. This was the student, i.e. the page. I have gone back and made all of my pages children. I just felt that continuity was better. And so the young lady who was in this image originally will probably be my knight for them. And I've gone back and redone the sky now to connect this page with this queen. And you'll notice some changes to the queen since last week. And those came about as I was studying the king. As I was working with the king and deciding that I needed flowers in there, I realized that was something that I had left out of the queen, even though that's a big part of her. And today my dogs want to like wander around and they're making me nervous. Uh, and so I added some flowers to her, and I changed out the deer that I had been using for a goat as an homage to the Smith Waite. I finally decided to call her the philanthropist because I talked a lot about her benevolence when I spoke about her. And so I did all of this as I was creating this image for the king, or financier, as I'm calling him. And I feel like they feel like a family now. You'll see the bull there in the background. My thought was, okay, this is a professional couple. They are making money and enjoying life, living in the country on the weekends, right? So they have this connection to the earth, but they're also very successful career-wise, right? And that's why they're in their suits on their country farm. And there's their child who is at a school, obviously, that's been being well maintained, learning and maturing in all things earth. So that's kind of the idea where I was headed with these. And I kind of like the way that they're starting to feel like a little family, which is what I like to see with my quartz. And so now I have a very specific direction when that night comes up of how I want that night to look. And I already have the silhouette that I want to use for the night. And I think I'm generally pretty happy with how they turned out. I had briefly considered placing him in like a Wall Street setting, similar to like the Urban Tarot has done. But I really feel like that misses some of the earthly connection. And so I tried to connect him with that business side through his apparel, like his suit that he's wearing, um, and to the earth through this kind of farm setting that just felt right to me. And so that's the King of Pentacles. That's what I've been thinking about, what I've been working on, what I've been doing with it, and how it ended up. Let me know about your thoughts in regards to that particular card that I created. If you look in the description box below, you'll find the links to all of my things. And one of those things is the Good Journeys into Tarot Facebook group, where you get first look at the cards as I create them, and can share your thoughts and give your input as I create the imagery to improve it. And so, and sometimes it leads to things that really are better than anything I had started with. The Devil was inspired by Tarot Stash in my deck. And also, this whole little family thing was inspired by something he said last week, which was that, to him, the King and Queen of Pentacles are like the ultimate couple, right? They're in it for life. And so I really felt like they needed to be connected together when I created them. So I have shuffled the deck, and of what's left, we've got less than half left now to draw our next card that we will be talking about next week on 78 Cards in 78 Weeks. And it is the Four of Swords, our card of rest or truce in the midst of our battle. And so next week we'll be talking about the Four of Swords. If this is one of your favorite cards or least favorite cards, or you would just enjoy having a conversation with me about cards, let me know at any of the contact information in the description box below, and you could join me as we create a card, as many people have done over the last several weeks. Coming up on my channel on the 15th, there will be another What's So Great featuring the Spacious Tarot, in which Jane the Seeker and Jason from Tarot by the Pines try to convince me why I should be using this more, rather than it just sitting on my shelf. It is one of those decks, just like the Santo Morte and the Robin Wood that I did this same live event about, that I put off buying for a long time because there were cards in it that I absolutely loved and I wanted in my collection, but I just didn't know that if I would use the deck that much. And it's been very enlightening to hear other people's ideas about decks in person. Things that I wouldn't necessarily see that show up. I'm trying to think what else is coming up for us. I think that's it. Next week will be 78 Cards in 78 Weeks with the Four of Swords. And on the 15th, then we will be doing our What's So Great again. If you need someone on your channel to talk about anything, let me know. I'm there for you. I will be probably working a great deal this week on writing. I have unexpectedly discovered I have an article due for the Cartomancer that I wasn't sure I was going to be published, and so I have to get it done in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to be distracting me a bit, but hopefully I will soon get to the VRs that I've been wanting to do, and you'll be able to enjoy those as well. I hope that if you're in the US and you actually have a long weekend this weekend, that you're being safe and that you will enjoy it. For everyone else, have a great week, and until next time, good journeys.